Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to today's Art Chat with Linda Fisler. My name is Sarah Alspaugh. I am the Online Education Manager here in the Fine Art Department at F&W, and I just want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today. We have a great Art Chat planned for you, Marketing Your Art with Alyson Stanfield. Before I turn things over to Linda and Alyson, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. Everyone has entered this art chat in listen only mode, and that simply means that you're muted so we don't pick up noise from your end. However, you will be able to hear and see the PowerPoint presentation. If you have any questions, please type those in to the questions section of the GoToWebinar control panel, and I'll keep an eye on those as we go. And then we'll have some time at the end for you to ask your questions for Linda and Alyson. So one last thing, we are recording today's session. So if you know somebody who wasn't able to join us, feel free to share this with them after. And you'll be able to find that at artistnetwork.com/art-chats. All right. Well, I think that's it for me. So welcome, Linda and Alyson. I'm so excited for this today.
Hi,
Thanks,
Sarah. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening as well, and welcome, Alyson, too. You want to say a quick hello?
Hi, thanks.
Yeah. Actually, Alyson is probably known by her other name, which is Art Biz Coach, and her website is artbizcoach.com. There you can see on the screen. And I just wanted to welcome Alyson to the show. This is one of those things where you never know if somebody, what will happen until you ask the question. And I had always wanted to have Alyson on the show, and I was always kind of, should I ask her? I know she's really busy. I don't know if she want to do the show. And all of that kind of, fearful questions got in the way. And I finally mustered up my courage, and I sent her an email, and she wrote back, yes, of course. So thank you, Alyson. I'm so happy that you're here. It's one of those things that proves, never be afraid to ask the question. The worst they can say is no, but you said yes, and it really made my day. So welcome.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having the courage to ask, and I'm sorry that you needed courage to ask.
No, it's not. It wasn't that you weren't approachable, because you are very approachable. It was just, it was just me. It was being silly. I mean, it's just such a, it's such a thing that just put the ego and the fear aside and just go for it was like the lesson of the day that day. I think everything was like kind of crazy that day. So just to start out, for those of you that don't know Alyson, I'm going to ask her just to talk a little bit about her history and how she started her business and give us a little bit of her background.
Okay, so I was a museum curator and educator for 10 years at 3 museums in the Midwest, and in 2000, I should say at that time, I was 3 museums, 10 years. I think I had 9 or 10 different directors in 10 years. And
Wow.
So, yeah, high turnover rate. And this is kind of funny. I think after I left each one, the directors that were in place stayed for a long time. So it may have been me. It might have been me that drove people away. But anyway, I guess I should talk about my experience there, because there's one particular experience that informs a lot of what I do right now, and that is at my first museum. It was then called the Oklahoma City Art Museum. It's now the Oklahoma City Museum of Art. The director came on and she said, she was a very astute, knew all about museum legal stuff and ethics and all that stuff. And she said, how can we involve artists in the museum more? And it was, she began having artists to the museum, and I actually formed a salon of artists. I think we have a slide of that that was in the paper. Yeah, that's me with the big hair in the 80s.
We all had that.
Me and the guys. There was actually, I think, one woman I guess she was gone that day. There was one woman who came, and we met every week and just talked about art. And there was one of these guys is an architect. One of them is an artist on the side. Anyways, a wide variety of people, and we just talked about their being an artist and making art in Oklahoma and beyond, well beyond. So this salon that I had, it was a salon for lack of a better word, kind of was kind of my beginning real connection, even though I went through art school. My master's degree is in art history, but I started out as a painting major. This was my real connection with artists in the community. So after that experience, I moved on to 2 other museums. I organized the first conference on art in Oklahoma, where I involved artists and arts writers and arts community, arts leaders, and so forth. So I was very involved in the artist community in Oklahoma. Then I went to Kansas, to Wichita, Kansas, and the fabulous museum at the Wichita Art Museum, and was not connected to the museum there. But what happened was I realized that I was that I wanted to live in Colorado. That's the nicest way of putting it. That I wanted to live in Colorado, and I just realized also that when you museums, you go where the jobs are, and you don't necessarily get to live in Colorado. So I left museums behind, and I started an art consulting business in Denver right before 9/11. So this is right before 9/11.
Oh my gosh.
Not only was it before 9/11, but I had never run a business. I had worked in nonprofits for years, and before that I worked before grad school, I worked in the U.S. Senate for 2 years or so. And so I was like, anyway, I knew a lot. I knew how to build websites because I had learned code, and I knew how to build a list. That was really key, and I'd love to talk more about that. But
Sure.
I didn't know how to run a business, and anyway, I tried this art consulting business, which for those of you listening, if you don't know what that is, I wanted to buy art for people who wanted to live with it or work with it or what have you. I mean, how cool is that to walk around, get to go around town and buy art? Yeah, that would have been really cool. And I had 2 or 3 gigs, I can't even remember, and then what happened was that the artists that I had known in my museum life, some of the people that that I'd been in contact with as a curator, mostly as a curator, were coming. They knew I started out on my own, and they said, "I need help." And everyone wanted an agent. Everyone wanted someone to do the work for them. And after researching it and knowing where I came from in the spectrum, I mean, as a museum curator, you don't deal with agents. It's just not heard of at that level. Right. And so I just knew that wouldn't serve them in the long run. And so it became Art Biz Coach. It became Art Biz Coach I sent out my first newsletter. It wasn't quite Art Biz Coach at the time, but on March 30th, 2002. And so it just became what it is at that moment because people asked for help and I listened.
Cool. Yeah, it was interesting as, excuse me, I'm publishing a book, which you know about because that's how we actually started talking to one another, is through Facebook actually. and I was comparing the 2 worlds, the art world and the book world, and you hit it on the nose. One of the things is the art world does not have agents, at least for, let's just say, most artists don't have agents, and I don't even think the big name artists have agents. I'm thinking like, I don't know what Thomas Kincaid had, if you want to look at it that way when he was on television, but pretty much if you're interested in going to a museum and seeing if you can work with the museum and stuff like that, the artist is the one that's making that connection. It's not somebody for the artist.
Right. Well, at that level, curator, if you told a curator that you wanted, that they needed to talk to your agent, they would just say, forget it. Because
Right,
curators
exactly.
come from an art historical background, and they know that art history is a history of individual artists, not agents. And they are
Exactly.
just, they don't want the middleman. And you know, they might talk to the artist dealer, you know, if they go in to see a show at a gallery, but they
Right.
eventually want to talk to the artist and visit the artist studio directly.
And I have like a great way of saying that that is so true is because I used to work with Kevin McPherson, and I was kind of I was really his assistant, but typically I may have opened the door, but after a while they wanted to talk to Kevin. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
you know, it was very, very clear that Kevin needed to be in on the conversation because they weren't comfortable, you know, that comfortable working with someone that was working on his behalf. So, you know, that is very, very true. And you had mentioned in your conversation that we were just having that you wanted to talk a little bit about building lists of people. Do you want to do that now, or should we do that a little bit later?
Let's talk. I'm looking at our. Let's talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think. Okay, all right, that's cool. So that, we'll move on to the next question. And one of the, I just wanted to make sure that it was in there somewhere that we were going to cover it. Alyson and I have been working through an outline and putting questions together, and so I wanted to make sure that we had that in there. And I have it written out separately too, Alyson. So if we don't catch it, I'll catch you again on it.
I have some notes,
A
and
study
hopefully
a
we'll
few
look
years
at
ago
them.
identified. Okay, cool. So we have a study, or I saw a study a few years ago that said there are 4.4 million artists in the U.S. And that's a lot of artists. And what's going to give us an edge is knowing how to market our art is one thing that's going to do that. But we're all competing for the same art collectors' attention and shows. And then there's naturally that 4.4 million artists also includes hobby artists as well as professional artists, and it's okay to be either. And you know, even if you're a hobbyist, it still feels good when you sell a painting. It's so, you know, let's keep that in mind. And it says, but let's talk some differences that you can list or questions we can ask ourselves to determine, you know, are we really a professional artist, a fine art artist, or are we really, you know, a hobbyist who's out there trying to sell some art, and you know, it really isn't our total income, if you want to put it that way.
Okay, let's go to the next slide, just so that you don't have to look at this old newspaper photo anymore, and you can look at a better picture with Clive. So first of all, let me just address something you just said, and that you said we're all competing for the same shows and the same audience, which is not true. And so everyone has or should know their audience. It's not the world.
Right.
It's not the same
Right.
as another. Well, it could be very similar to that of another artist, but everyone has their own individual audience that is possible for them. I think that the primary difference between a professional artist and a hobbyist is mindset. And that will determine, your mindset will determine your success. There's just no doubt about it. So what I mean by that is I have this story, and if you've heard this, forgive me, but it's so important for everyone to listen to this, that not everyone who is an artist should try to make a living at it. By that, and what happens, and I've seen this happen over and over again because I've actually heard it from the parents or the best friends or whatever. I know this person, she's really good, she could make a lot of money if she would only do this. And that is, like, to me, that's like this giant red flag. And I just say, you know, you can't You cannot motivate people in that way to be something that they're not ready to be, and you cannot impose your wishes for them onto them. So I believe it's perfectly beautiful and legitimate, and that more people should embrace the idea of making art for pleasure. Having said that, because I think that if you aren't in the place where you are ready to ask for money for your art, where you're ready to accept rejection and criticism and shake it off and move on, and feedback of all kinds, if you're not ready to do the business side of your work, then making a business from your art it'll just make you sick. You won't be able to make art, you won't be able to do the business part, you'll become frustrated. And so I really believe that some people just can't stomach it. The art is too personal, it's fun, and when you add the business side to it, it takes away all of that. And then but I have to say this too, some people think the business side is just as fun as the art side, or they're more up for the challenge of it. And so you just have to kind of do a gut check and figure that out for yourself. So it's mindset. Am I ready? In my opinion, being a professional artist means it doesn't mean you actually make a living from your art. It means that you're working toward making a living from your art. And so it means, because there's plenty of people that are professional artists that also have full-time teaching jobs, or full-time decorative painting jobs, or full-time graphic design jobs. And so so I think that it's just working, it's actually accepting money for your art and wanting to build your reputation. So it consists of a consistent studio practice, and believe me, there's lots of people trying to be professional artists who don't even have the studio practice down yet. So if you're not making art regularly, you really need to rethink this new vocation of yours. So it means a consistent studio practice. It means consistent marketing. Notice I don't put an hour limit on that, because some people have the full-time day jobs. And so
right.
Consistent studio practice, consistent marketing, and then you just have to be serious about the business and about building your reputation, about putting yourself out there. You cannot be a professional anything with all kinds of, with being wishy-washy about everything. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll feel like painting next week. Maybe I'll feel like sending out an email in June. So you really have to have that serious approach. And that's all I think being a professional is. It means being professional in what you do, and not taking, not making excuses. Not making excuses, right. Not doing things when you feel like doing them.
Yep. Yeah, it's if you look at a full-time job that isn't in the art, I mean, you're dedicating 8 hours a day at whatever you're getting paid for at that full-time job. It's, and not saying that you have to spend an equal 8 hours towards your art in that same day, but I know a lot of artists that work that full-time job, and it's like, okay, I'm home now, I can go paint, and it's just their easel calls them, and it's just so very easy, and it's so very happy for them, and to spend that time there. If you find yourself dragging yourself to the easel, you might want to question the choice.
Right.
Like you said, how much are you willing to put into it?
Linda, the people that I worked with, like at the museum level, the artists that I worked with at the museum level, they don't like work 8 hours and then don't think about art. They're thinking about art all the time.
Yeah.
They are,
Yes.
when they're not making art, they're talking about art, they're visiting galleries or visiting museums or inviting people to their studios. It's a lifestyle, it's not like a job.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, there's so many times that, I'll be away from my office or away from my easel or away from my computer where I'm writing, and my mind is still on painting or writing or sometimes on too many things, which is also an issue. But still, but not going into that because my mind's just weird to begin with. But you're right. It's like even when I went out and played golf, to get some exercise, I'm walking down the fairway. My husband's trying to figure out what club to hit. I'm walking down the fairway going, ooh, look at that tree. Look at the way the light's hitting it. I get up to my ball, and it's like, oh, yeah, I need a club. Well, this one will work, and I hit it, But I'm still out there just, tuning my eye. And I'm terrible to play golf with, too, by the way. But I so understand what you're saying, and I think a lot of our listeners do, too, because it is a constant thing. Even if I was working at a full-time job at something I didn't like, that would even give me more of an excuse to sit there and think about art, So yeah, definitely, it's in the blood, and the brain certainly is always focused on that too. So great advice. So let's talk a little bit. Ida, one of my fellow artists that's in my artist creative entrepreneur group, I had put a note out asking if they had any questions for you, and she wanted to talk a little bit about gallery representation, and I want to take that a little bit further and just say pitching your art to people in general. One of her questions were, how do you know when you're ready to approach a gallery? And is it a good use of your time to approach your gallery, which I think it's kind of an interesting question. If you want to try to sell your art, I think it is a good use of your time to approach a gallery. So let's just talk about how do you know when you're ready to approach a gallery?
Well, first of all, you just made an assumption that isn't true for everyone. Not everyone wants to sell their art through galleries. Really? Oh, yeah. I have tons of clients that have no desire to work through galleries. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I was thinking maybe, I thought you were talking about the good use of time, but okay, go ahead.
Okay, so for those who wonder, there's never the perfect time to approach a gallery. However, I would say if you're questioning it, you're probably not ready, right? So I think that, in my opinion, I put myself in the place of a gallerist, and every gallerist is going to tell you something different, and I will also add the caveat that everything is changing. The world is turning upside down. Galleries are probably, even museums have changed more than galleries have recently. So they still have an old-fashioned model. They're still unregulated, and they, still do, good old boys business in a way that was from the 19th century. So I think that things are changing, and what I'm going to say is going to be different for every gallery. But if I were a gallerist, I would want to know that an artist was selling before I took them into my gallery. I would want to know, that would be so helpful to me if the artist had some momentum before they came into the gallery, if they had built up a reputation, if I could see that people, they actually could sell their art and they could help me sell their art. That would be huge. We could have a great partnership that way, because I need the artist to help me sell the work. I mean, I can do so much, but if the artist isn't cooperating, if they don't come and do their artist talk, or if they don't, if they haven't demonstrated their professionalism by meeting deadlines and, having the right paperwork and all that stuff when they need it, that's a barrier. And so anything that you can do in your business that can demonstrate that level of professionalism would be helpful before you approach galleries. I think that some of what I said in the last question that you asked is equally true, can be applied here, and that the professionalism part of it. So if you don't have a consistent studio practice, I mean, the galleries are going to count on you to produce consistently a certain body of work. So you've got to have that body of work that they can count on, and to be ready to produce more of it. So if you don't have that in place, there's, mark that off before you go any further. And then just, I would do, I encourage a lot of my private clients to do as many solo shows as they can, and I don't care where those are. I mean, they could be in any venue. They could be in an empty pop-up space. They can be in a salon. But there's something about putting together an exhibition of your work that you learn a lot about your work. You learn about curating. You learn about what people like. You learn how to talk about the work. And so I would, open studios can be similar, but artists have a problem curating their own work. Right? You want to show everything to everyone. And so you really need to learn how to be a good curator of your work and hold back the stuff that's maybe not so good. And I think that you know which works those are if you take a hard look. Not everyone needs to see everything you've ever made. And solo shows help you do that. So I really encourage as much as that as possible. And when it comes time, when you're getting close, I mean, even now, you should be visiting those galleries. You should be talking to the artists there. You should be talking to the director, the head of the gallery when you can, without approaching them. You should become known to the gallery before you approach them. That would be my advice.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, do you want to talk a little bit about galleries aren't the only way to sell the art? Do you want to talk about other places? Naturally, if they curate their own solo exhibition, you would hope to sell in that show.
Right. Plenty of people are selling art online. Plenty of people are selling, lots of people sold lots of art on Facebook. It's harder now with the new algorithm of Facebook business pages, but people sell art on Facebook, on Pinterest, on Instagram, and I think that talk about your book marketing versus art marketing. That's building your platform, right. And it's when you build a following, when you do the consistent marketing, when you create interest in your art, you can do that online, sight unseen, only with JPEGs. But right. Lots of people are doing open studios, they're doing house parties, they're working with art consultants who place their art in hospitals and bank lobbies and so forth. The pop-up galleries are coming, and then there's all the artists that make a good living from arts festivals.
Yes.
They do the circuit.
So some great... Yep, great options there. And then, and all of that, you mentioned it as a platform, and you really need to think of it as that way as well. And all of those opportunities, selling at art festivals or, getting a group of artists together like you did with a salon and, maybe creating an exhibit in a building somewhere that, maybe it's a vacant building in somebody's downtown area that you can dress up and have people in. You're going to help the person that's trying to sell the building by having a little exhibition in there, and provided the building doesn't need a lot of work to do that naturally. Right. But that's another option, and all of this trains the person to talk to prospective collectors about their work and to kind of hone their story, really.
Right, and not just the collectors, but you have to really have your people. Well, and not just individual people, but the people that are responsible for the space. Like you have to You have to be professional for the building manager or the property manager. And you have to learn to negotiate, and you have to learn to meet your deadlines, and to follow rules, and to sign contracts, and all of that can be, you just will learn a lot by doing those solo shows, no matter where they are.
Right. Too many times I've seen, like I've gone to shows or openings or whatever, and too many times I've seen the artists, say, oh, they're just really, really shy. They don't want to talk to people, but that's not the way that, it's hard to get out of your comfort zone and get out there and do it, but it's so necessary because you're going to create an experience for them when they look at your art, and that connection, that relationship that you build with them is just so important.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. So we've kind of been talking a little bit about presenting our work out there. Was curious about how would an artist, what are your suggestions about presenting your artwork to collectors and galleries over the internet? Framed, not framed, take a quick picture with my phone and put it out there, that's probably not good, that type of thing. So tell us a little bit, what would you suggest?
Okay, so I have just a few tips. I mean, could be a whole 3-day workshop. So
exactly. We're going to let you talk about your workshops too.
Oh no, I mean, I don't have one, but this is. I'm just saying, there's so much we could talk about here. So I gave you some examples. This is Stephanie Hartshorn, and I picked this out because one of the, just to pay attention to trends in websites. Not just art websites, but websites in general, because if you've noticed over the past couple of years, images are much bigger, text is much bigger than it used to, there's lots more white space on a site, and so if you have someone that's like surfing the internet and they're looking at these spacious sites with huge images, and then they come to yours and the images are really small and the text is really tight together and it's really packed, it is really jarring. And so you as an artist have all this virtual real estate, and you have a visual product, and some of you are hiding behind teeny tiny images, and you're not taking advantage of this new trend. So first of all is have your images professionally shot. This is for your, I should back up for a minute. You should have a home base. A home base is a website or a blog. It's somewhere where you can control how your art is seen and experienced as much as you can. It's not Facebook. It's not a Facebook page. It's a real, I own it, not Facebook. So, so have this place where you can send people and make it a really stellar experience for them. So you have the images professionally shot. You're going to wow them. Notice that on this site that image takes up 2/3 of the page at least. So it's really a good splash page. It's not really a splash page, it's a home page. We don't do splash pages anymore. Some of you may remember those. So yeah. There is a place for the photos with the iPhone, and it's not usually taking pictures of your art. It's for other things. But so have your images professionally shot, have a home base, make the images larger, the text larger and more spaced out. And then if we could go to the next slide. Always give yourself credit for your work. I am shocked at how many people don't use credit lines with their artwork. And so this, you can see that in this pop-up window on Barbara's site, if that didn't have her name on it, you wouldn't be able to see her name anywhere. It would not be associated with her work. So you would not show your art in a gallery or in anywhere without a label on it, in a book without a label on it. So why do you put it on your website? I mean, artists are incensed when people, quote unquote, steal their art and don't give them credit for it. But you're not giving credit to yourself a lot of the times. So always give yourself credit, and see how when you open this up, people associate your name with the image, and even even if just the title were there, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't have the same effect. That says, I made it, right there. It's kind of like putting your name on the front of a postcard. If you just have the image on the front and your name on the back, people have to flip it over back and forth to see the name and the image. But you're associating the two together here. I would add right here, it may be on other parts of her site, I really don't know, but I would add a price on there. If you're trying to sell art to people, put the price on there, on the credit, in the credit line. Then another, this is my favorite tip, it's the next slide. And that is to think of a variety of the way that you can show art. Art in situ. So you're asking about framed or unframed. I would not show framed and unframed side by side like on an image page like the last ones that we saw, but you can do it in some art in situ photographs. And these are, I know that Adele had these staged. Actually don't know. Her house is pretty black and white. That might be her house. I'm not sure. But I know she staged photos so that she could show art in situ on her site. And they're really fun to look at. And so if you can show your art living in places where people live, work, eat, whatever, then you show the frame and the scale and all of that without having to say it. So those are just some tips showing your art better online.
Yeah, there's an art friend of mine that had done this, and I don't know if there's websites out there that let you drop the images in, but I'll have to find out from Stephen and find out how he did that.
There are.
There are? Oh, okay, great.
And I'm so sorry that I don't know off the top of my head. If it's possible to put a link to it in the, I can get the information to you for the replay. If you could,
that would be great. Yeah,
on the replay page. Yeah, there are. I just would make sure it looks real. Make sure it doesn't look like a fake photo. Because I know when artists were doing that themselves in Photoshop, it doesn't look very good. So make sure that you have that it looks realistic.
Right. Yeah. Because if it doesn't look realistic, then it doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work. So,
right.
Yeah. So I'm going to remind our listeners at this point that if you have any questions, so please type those in. So to Alyson, there's a place down, I think it's on the right-hand side, that you can type a question in, and Alyson will start to collect those. Or Alyson, I'm sorry, Sarah will start to collect those for us. And then we're still going to be talking a little bit about some, art marketing, and we're going to go into art marketing strategies a little bit. I attended a virtual conference on book marketing, and there were a lot of great ideas in there, some that would even transfer over to the art world. And of course, Alyson, you have a number of different workshops that you offer to artists. And to talk a little bit, I want you to talk a little bit about those workshops, and also any tips or advice that you can give us about art marketing strategies.
Well, I think you might be referring to my online classes that I teach, and so I teach.
Yes.
I teach a Art Biz boot camp, which is a 12-week marketing boot camp, and it's really a foundation, marketing foundation. And you should know, everyone should know that whenever I teach something, it's not about gathering information, it's about taking action. People who have been on my list a long time know. I don't even want you to give me money if you're not going to do the work. I really mean that. It doesn't make me look good. I like to look good. So, so Art Biz Bootcamp, I have a Organize Your Art Biz class. I love to teach organizing and productivity stuff to artists, and that's coming up soon. April 8th. I don't know when people will listen to that, but that's April 8th in 2015. And I love teaching that class, and that's online also. And then this summer, I'm teaching, I've never told anyone this, I'm teaching Creative Content Camp. And I am teaching, I'm teaching a little, and then it's about generating content for your blog, your newsletter, and social media. So that you can no longer say, I don't have anything to say. So I'm excited for that. And then I do a live events. I do one in Golden, Colorado every fall. It was called Art Biz Makeover. I will announce right now this year it's called Art Biz Breakthrough, because that's really what it is.
Yay.
And then I do for hire events. I go when people ask me to, when they ask nicely, and we can work well together. I go and do workshops in other places. So, marketing strategies. That's what you want to talk about. You want to talk about marketing strategies, which I teach. In a 12-week class. I think I should say, and we've been comparing it to the book marketing. The book marketing and art marketing are pretty similar. You both have creative products. You both have, they're not service based, but there can be services involved. But marketing is marketing, and that's why in my classes and at my workshops I often get writers, dancers, storytellers, musicians, because marketing is marketing. There are things that are different when you have a product versus when you have a service, but it's very similar to like a writer, an author has to build a platform. No publisher would take an author without a platform, and unless you do self-publishing. And then an artist has to have a reputation, has to build a reputation. So it's real similar that way.
Right.
Marketing strategies, I've already mentioned the first one, and that is to build the home base. People, you can't get away without having a website or a blog or some place to send people that's online. And everything that you can do after that should, not everything, because you're going to do networking in person and artist talks and so forth, but everything you do should be related. Like don't just, you don't have like Facebook here, a website here, a blog here, a newsletter here. They should all be generating traffic that moves around. I wish you could see my hands. They're moving around right now. Literally, I'm doing this thing that I do at my workshops, and so they should all be connected, and the energy should flow from one to another. You don't go, now I do my newsletter, now I do my blog. How do they fit together? There should be a mission for each one. For instance, Facebook is where I share, this is just an example, Facebook is where I share my blog posts, my finished work, my inspiration. Twitter is where I share links for other people, resources, or promote other people. And then my blog is where I tell my story and the story of my art, or maybe if I'm a teacher, maybe it's how I do things. So you have a mission for each, and then you have no confusion as to what goes where. I think one of the questions you have around marketing strategies, and most people have around marketing strategies, is social media and how does it fit in. I think you have to remember, and I just told you some of the ways that it fits in. I think what you have to remember is that social media is social. It's about making connections, making friends, being friendly back. You cannot be selling all the time and keep those friends. So you have to remember that it's social, and that's why some people think it's a waste of time. But it's just taking the place of all the networking that we used to do. And hopefully it doesn't take the place of it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's addition, and it's an addition.
Yeah, I mean, you still have your face-to-face. It's an addition. Yeah. The interesting thing that I always remind myself with social media is I have a lot of relationships locally, and you get out and you cultivate that, or you just visit with them, or however you want to say that. But social media allows my reach to go further in connecting and making relationships with people outside of my local community, which is something that we didn't have before the internet, unless we traveled there. So if you just think of it as just exposure, as opposed to trying to sell something, it takes on a whole different flavor.
Well, if you think about the fact that everybody knows about 150 other people, and if you make connections no matter what, if you have 100 friends on Facebook, that's what, 15,000 people that you're connected to? Right there? I'm terrible at math, but actually I'm not terrible at math. But
don't ask me, I'm terrible.
But I'm under pressure. So
that's right.
You have to think about those things. You have to realize that there's potential in every contact that you make. And you may not, it's like I tell people, like, you may not think Uncle Fred cares about your art, but Uncle Fred cares about you, and he wants to see you succeed, and he will do whatever you ask him to. Show up at your art opening, share your email with a friend, whatever it is. He's happy to support you. So you have to remember that. And your lesson from the beginning of the call, ask.
Exactly.
Ask. Linda, this is where I wanted to talk about the list, the marketing strategies.
Great.
Section. Because
go for it.
You have to have that home base, but you have to realize, and this is where my training in the U.S. Senate, actually the training in the U.S. Senate, because my boss, his donor list was so critically important. My Rolodex was so critically important. Hopefully people know what a Rolodex is. My Rolodex was so extremely important to him and to me. And then when I worked at the museum, it was our member list. So I knew I was one of the people. I've watched a lot of people try to start online businesses, and I started mine fairly early, and I knew immediately that building my list was my number one priority. And I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to have those people that know, like, and trust you, give you their email addresses. It's just critical. And then, you crazy people out there, you know who I'm talking to. I don't know if it's you or not, but some of you know it's you. You have this list and you're not using it. People don't hear from you for months. That is like mistake number one, because nobody else in the world has that list. And those people have asked to hear from you. And if you do nothing else, if you take nothing else from this call, you set up a regular email. I don't care if it's a full-fledged newsletter or whatever. You schedule a regular monthly email that you send to those people, those poor people that are waiting to hear from you. It's critical. Okay, I'm off my soapbox now. Not really.
I was sitting here. I was just. Yeah, it's kind of like nervous laughter, right? But anyway, one of the things that. Go ahead, Alyson. You're going to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. One of the things with sending out newsletters. Naturally, I send out a newsletter announcing the art chat and some of the other news that's going on. And you always have some people that unsubscribe, and it was like, oh, I'm not going to send my list out because I don't want them to unsubscribe. Well, if you don't send a list out every month and you do it 3 months from now, they're going to forget that they signed up and unsubscribe. So,
Exactly.
so those things happen. Those things happen, and don't worry about it. They've moved on or whatever. You don't want to talk to somebody who doesn't want to talk to you.
Oh,
so
exactly.
The people that really want to, go ahead. If you have anything
the
to
people
add.
that unsubscribe are costing you money sitting on your list.
Yes.
Because they're costing you money, because eventually if you get enough people on your list, you have to pay for distributing the emails, and you're always wondering, do I keep them on my list? I haven't heard from them in years. I need to clean up my list. You want them to unsubscribe. You should cherish the unsubscribes. And you're punishing the people that have asked to hear from you by worrying about the people that might unsubscribe. You can't run a business that way.
Yeah, waste of time. Yes, waste of time. Just go for it. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about blogging. Should artists blog? Should artists blog? Is it important for them to blog? I think the answer is yes.
Well, no, it's not. There's that S word again.
Maybe, if you're not a good writer. Yeah.
This should. Okay. I should do this. Alyson said I should do this. No, it's not true. I have had clients literally. I mean, it's total stress to come up with a blog post. They're doing fine without the blog. Someone tells them that they should blog, and they put a blog up, and they put up like "Welcome to my blog," and they don't blog for 6 months. That's terrible. And it looks bad. Those people should not be blogging. Like, you go to old blogs, artists' old blogs, and they're like 2012 was the last one. It looks terrible. Like, that is ruining your reputation. Mm-hmm. It's not ruining it, but it's not helping you at all to have that there. So if you do have that, the least you could do is take off the dates on your blog. Just take off the dates of the posts. Seriously, I'm serious. Because you can do that. If you have stories to tell, if you are a teacher, I think it's kind of important for you to blog, because you are trying to build a reputation as an expert in teaching, and you can do that with words, where you can't always do that just by people visiting your website. So you do it with words and video, and so video would be great if you're a teacher, and that would be really beneficial for a blog. But you need to be dedicated to it and have a regular schedule, or else it just looks bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some artists find it hard to write too. And if it's going to become a chore, then it's just not helpful, because then you, like you said, it's been 2012. Oh, it's a year ago. I should write another blog now. Right.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Definitely so. Yeah. So, but if you do like to write, and it does come, it's not a chore for you, and that gives you some news to put out on Facebook, a link to put out to your blog on Facebook, and so it is, it is up to the individual, totally up to the individual, and get rid of the S word. Another note to self.
No, don't say should. Yeah, I catch myself doing that too. So it should be noted that you don't have to just write on a blog. It could be a whole, it could be a video blog, it could be a podcast blog. You could have someone transcribe it for you. You could just put a lot of images up with a sentence with each image. So you don't have to be
this is just
writer.
Off my easel. Yeah.
Well,
something as simple as off my easel today, or
you need to, I think you would want to say more than that, because if you had a lot of those on your site, it might look kind of boring. But if you had, one of the frustrating things I find on artist blogs is, or I should say don't find, is when I go to an artist blog and I can't find the art. Like, I blogged about everything but their art, and which is not why I went there. So if you're an artist and you blog, you should have your art with every post. That's my rule. I'm sticking with it.
Good rule.
Yeah.
There you go.
But
Got a rule from
yeah,
Alyson on that now, so write that one down.
if it's a blog about your
So,
art, it should have your art. If it's a blog about something else, like art in the community, that's different.
right. So a lot of what we've been talking about is basically defining an artist's brand. You know, you have to know what your brand is going to be, or maybe you don't. You know, when you start pulling your art strategies together and things like that. So, you know, a lot of big names out there. Like if I said to other artists, if I mention, you know, those person's name, the big past masters, Monet, Rembrandt, Da Vinci, you say those names and certain images pop up in your mind, and it's very, you know, very, I'm going to use quotes around the word brand here. And it, you know, even some of the masters of today, if I say Kevin McPherson, a certain type of style of painting comes through, and Kwan Ho or Carolyn Anderson, you can almost see that, and they have been very, very successful at creating brands. Can you talk a little bit about creating our own brand and how maybe some common mistakes that you see artists making?
Yeah, so this is interesting because the three people that you just mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't heard of one of them before. Okay?
There is that interesting thing that's a dynamic that happens in the art world. I can go anywhere, name 4 or 5 artists, and people I'm talking to don't know who they are.
Exactly.
So go ahead.
There is, when I left the museum world, I realized there were other art worlds out there. There are
Mm-hmm.
various pockets of art world, and you mentioned people that are teachers. They teach art, right?
Yes.
So they're well known to other
Yes.
artists. So
Exactly.
yeah. So there is that. They have that brand for the other artists. But if you told a museum curator some of those names, they wouldn't have heard of them. Trust me.
I do trust you.
You know what I mean.
I was going to agree with you.
This is why I think that, you know, there's more to building a reputation and to selling than a gallery. There's all these areas where you can expand your art business. There's so much opportunity for artists today to build that brand that aren't in like the, you know, in Art in America or whatever museum curators read these days. So
Mm-hmm.
modern painters or something like that. So I think that the brand always starts with the art. It has to start
Mm-hmm.
with the art. It's not a logo, it's not a design, it's not a font, it's the art. And everything else is built around that. It's also the artist. It's how you treat people, how you follow up with people, how you meet your deadlines, how you interact with people. It's how, sometimes for some people, it's how you dress. It's how you show
Mm-hmm.
up. And so it's much more, so it's the art, it's you, and it's everything. It's your whole package. Once you tell people, I'm an artist, people start sizing you up. Like, I wonder what she does, because, you know, she doesn't look like an artist. Not that you have to, not that there's a specific artist look, but, you know, people just start sizing you up and comparing you, and, you know, so you kind of need to know where you're coming from, and you need to be authentic with your story and your art. So the brand is mostly from the art, which is why so many artists who are just beginning, who are just, you know, they're still taking classes and stuff, they haven't really found, they're still in their teacher's mode. They're still painting like their teacher. And they, when they go to the next class, they paint like that teacher. And you cannot sell that work. You should never sell classroom work, because it'll piss off your teacher, and it's just unethical to do that. So you really need to find your own voice. And I don't mean, you know what I mean. Like if it looks like something you did that the teacher did, you should never sell it. So you really need to find your voice and that body of work that you're going to become known for. And it doesn't have to be like, anything really wacky. It just has to be like, yeah, this is Linda's work. I recognize it. Right?
Right. Right. Exactly.
That's the most important part of your brand.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, or should we?
There's so much
we're right
we can
at 2
add
o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're right at 2 o'clock. And Sarah, can you unmute and talk to us? Do we have questions coming in? Because I really would like to spend time with other questions if we could.
Sure, we do have a few questions that have come in already. And I just want to remind everyone that they can type their questions into the question section of the GoToWebinar control panel. And then I will be able to ask those to Alyson and then Linda for you. We have one question here from Judy, who is asking about selling art, and she wants to know, she just says, what about selling on eBay?
Judy, that's a great question. If you sell art on eBay, great. I have no problem with it. Your question might be, how do you do it? I don't know how you do it, but I have bought art on eBay. I bought art at an artist who I admire had an auction because she was moving, and I loved snagging one of her paintings. Artists used to do it a lot more, and they used to sell it fairly cheaply there. I hear less of it now happening since Facebook and other avenues have cropped up, but it certainly can be. You certainly can do that. You can do it on a regular basis, or you can do it on a, I need to sell. These have got to go kind of sale.
I feel like I would go to Etsy before eBay. What do you think about that?
Well, they're very different. eBay is an auction platform. Does Etsy have auctions?
I don't think so. I guess I just don't know. I guess I'm just not that into eBay.
That's the thing, is if you were going to have an auction, go to eBay.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know as many artists who are, like when eBay first came out, lots of artists were just painting and putting the art up there, putting the art up there. And I think that's when the Daily Painters, what's his name, Kevin, started the Daily Painter thing. Anyway, when he started that, I think that's how he was selling. Like, he sold everything through auction, I think.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. But that was a long time ago, and so I don't know how that kind of changed. If you have I hate for art to be sold cheaply. I just hate it, and it ruins it for everyone else. And it makes people think that that's what the real value is, and it's not. And it's art, some art that's being sold. There's no way those people are making money on that. There's no way. And so that, talk about professional versus hobbyist, that just ruins it for all the people that are trying to be professional about it. So I would like for, if you sell on eBay, to have a pretty, a decent reserve on it, so it doesn't go for pennies.
All right.
There's a hold on a second, Sarah. There's a number of different places that you can sell, or that you can list to sell. One of them is Fine Art America, and one of my largest sales came off of Fine Art America. So you can list your original, at a very good price, and then they have different things that can be created, greeting cards, different things like that, and it's a way to market it's a very good art marketing site. FineArtAmerica.com is one of them. Another one that I found was really interesting, Alyson, was Amazon decided. Sure.
And Fine Art America is not an art marketing site. Fine Art America, it's not a place where you put. Well, they don't do the marketing for you.
Oh, they don't do the marketing.
No,
you have to do your marketing. Right. Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it's a sales site, so you can go and sell there.
It's a sales site.
It's not an auction site, so it's not eBay, but it's, plenty of people sell various iterations of their art there. But I just had to clarify that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And then That's cool. That's cool. And then there's also, I thought it was interesting because I got about, I would say 6 to 8 months ago, got an email from Amazon that they were going to start into the art marketing, or not art marketing, art selling area. And I haven't seen anything from Amazon since. So I don't know if they just decided that it was losing money.
Amazon sells art from galleries only, as far as I'm concerned. They have relationships with galleries who can put their artists on their site. As far as I know, they have not opened it up to individual artists.
I'll have to go back and look. I had loaded mine up to there. I haven't seen anything recently. I need to go take it down actually. But
okay, then that changed. Yeah.
Yeah, this was a new announcement, and that was about, it could have been a year ago around this time that they kind of went off and did that. But like I said, I haven't seen anything from them since. So they aren't. If they're doing something, they're not doing something very aggressively, I guess is the way that you could put it.
Yeah, that would be interesting to hear about.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sarah.
Let's see. I like this question because I've been working in this industry for about 6 years now, and I'm not sure I've ever heard somebody ask this. But
no.
August asks, what kind of paperwork should be done for the sale of artwork, if any?
Usually, you want a receipt for people. I would always get, and the receipt can include this. I would always put on it that you retain the copyright, because people don't necessarily understand copyright. Most artists don't understand copyright, but people, you need to educate them that this, I could make this into prints if I wanted to, or they need to know that that you retain. They can't make it into prints, but you can. So you need to do that, and then you, behind the scenes, need to document the sale. So and this is not, we're using paperwork in the broadest sense of the word, because I hope you're using a computer database where you go in and you put the name of the buyer, the collector, and the their information and who owns that artwork now. Off the top of my head, I actually wrote an article like 16 things to do after the sale of an artwork, including photography and. But I think the receipt to the person. Now, some people use letters or certificates of authenticity. That is something that was new to me when I came out of museums, because we just would never have a certificate of authenticity at a museum. I mean, that just wasn't done. It's not done. But I know there are rules, like in California, I think California has rules about certificates of authenticity, so you need to know those kinds of laws. And sometimes just a certificate of authenticity, which I think is just truly, I'm just being honest here, I think is just weird. I mean, I just didn't grow up with that. I didn't learn through that. But it could be like really, some people could think it was really cool to have that. So, so it doesn't hurt anything. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of, you really need to have a receipt, you need to document, you need to put it in your bookkeeping, you need to charge sales tax for it, so you note the sales tax amount, and yeah. And what am I missing?
I don't know, the copyright thing was really great advice, though. That's definitely important.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, we have a ton of great questions here. I can keep asking them if you guys are up for that. I know.
Yeah, go ahead. Just remember that Alyson has the
Yeah, I know we have
commitment
a strict
in about 20
time
minutes.
frame here. Sandra, well, first, Sandra said that she does sell well on eBay, so that's good to know. And then she asks, before approaching a gallery, how much social media must be in place beforehand? A website at the very least? So I
Well,
guess it means internet presence or
yeah, a website isn't social media.
right.
So I think that's the main thing that you need. Galleries are the slowest to adopt social media, so I wouldn't worry so much about that. Although I do recommend to connect with galleries on social media, like their stuff and comment on their posts and the work that they're showing there. That is an additional way to be on the radar of a gallery. But you really just need your web presence. That's the only thing I would really worry about it. So your home base.
Okay. Susie asks, if you work in two different looks, should you just market separately, or do you think one needs to be a nom de plume? Sorry if my French spelling is off. Hopefully you know what that means.
I know what she means. So she need to have a pen name for one part of her art.
Okay.
It's hard to say without actually seeing the work, because sometimes artists tell me they're doing different work and it's not. Or it's just different subject matter. Know that different subject matter does not mean it's a different style. Okay, it's just different subject matter. So if it is indeed very different, like these are large-scale abstract paintings and these are bronze portrait busts, like those are very different.
Right.
I don't know that you need to use a nom de plume. I think that you might want two different websites, though, because you really have two different audiences. And when you confuse people, they leave. So you would know who to send, where to send the portrait bust people, and where to send the abstract people.
Okay.
So I think you might be able to use your same name. I wouldn't want you to have to use a different name, although some people do, I will tell you, but you can separate them that way.
Cool. Kind of piggybacking on that question then, Mila asks, do major galleries deal with painters selling their art under a pseudonym for general public? Of course, when registering, the painter submits his true contact information, but she's wondering about presenting to the public under a pseudonym.
I don't know that I know the answer to that question. However, I would just introduce Banksy to you.
Ah.
The whole world, I mean, no one in the world knows who Banksy is, but presumably the galleries that show his work know who he is. Presumably it's a he. So there is at least one person out there who isn't using their real name, who is very well known, and I'm sure the gallery knows his name.
Oh, that's a great example. That's fascinating. Hopefully that helps you, Mila. Let's see. Lot asks, will an artist without professional training, does not have a degree, be successful given the strategies you've mentioned?
Oh, God, yes. So many people out there are in your same position. Remember, it's a mindset thing. It's your mindset, and there's so many. That's what's fascinating about this whole thing is that anyone can be an artist these days, and anyone is an artist these days, and the people that will succeed are not necessarily the ones with the degrees. In fact, the people that don't have degrees, and I have nothing against degrees. I have a couple of them myself, and I so admire my painting teachers and so forth that I have nothing against it. But the people that didn't grow up in that system are, and maybe younger people in general they just are like buck the system. Like I'll figure out a way to do it myself, And so it's really interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what a new, and it is kind of, I have been kind of watching it, a new generation of art students that aren't tied to the, got to graduate and get into a gallery and blah, blah, blah. This is the way it's always been done kind of thing. They grew up in a world where everyone was marketing to them. And so they've learned a lot from that. And so I would just encourage you, I tell everyone, I teach the rules. I teach you my friend Cynthia calls me the Martha Stewart of the art business, because I teach you like the best way to do things, right? And I love doing that. And then every once in a while I remind you, break them, break the rules, make up your own rules, and then I'll write about you.
Cute.
I love it. I love it when artists do that. I go, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, you're going to be in the next edition of my book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another question from Lot then is there a minimum number of paintings you should keep making in order to consider yourself a professional artist?
No. There isn't, but it's the consistency that's important. It's the it's the regular studio hours. It's the I paint. You are a painter, so I'll use that word. I paint because I'm an artist. I don't paint because I have to. I paint because I have to, but I don't paint because I feel like it. I paint because I'm an artist, and that's what I do. I get up every day and I do that. So it's not necessarily every day, but for a lot of people it is. So it's not the amount, but it's the consistency and the dedication to that studio practice, and it is a practice.
Awesome.
Yes.
Got it.
And it's interesting that the reason why I kind of snickered at that was because on that study that I had mentioned earlier, they did have a set number of paintings that had to be completed in a year, and that's how they divided up professional versus non-professional. And the number that they used, I was like scratching my head at, because that's like, I don't know how they would get that much done. But I like your answer, Alyson.
It varies so much, because some people, like, they use egg tempera, and it takes them 6 months to complete a work. I mean, so you cannot put a number on it.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. I mean, some people do, drawing sketches, and that's what they do, and they do them really quickly in a half an hour, and that's their finished product. And then some people take, months and months on one painting. So I think it's kind of whatever you have to do, for you. So hopefully that helps you out a lot with those questions.
Yeah.
So can I interject here too, that if it's If it's a question that you have around your professionalism, and you're not feeling like a professional right now, like maybe you're spending 10 hours a week in the studio, up it, increase it. Like, say, I'm going to go 11 hours next week, and then I'm going to go 12 hours next month, and then just increase it until it feels right for you. Like, this is good, and I'm feeling more like I can fill those shoes.
Awesome. That's great advice.
I really think it comes back to mindset, like you were talking about, Alyson, because doing the show, we hear a lot of conversations with artists, have a lot of conversations with artists, and there's a big pressure out there that, we paint daily, or we do this, or we do that. And again, it's like, it's that S word. You should be painting daily. Well, no, not really. If you've got something else that you have to get done on that day, then you got something else you have to get done on that day. But yeah, I really think I like your answer of it has to be your mindset, that's what you're going to do. Yeah, and there's some people that painting daily could be very helpful too, like to get into the habit and the routine of doing it, like to set yourself up for that challenge. I think what I worry about is here's what I worry about, the 30 days challenge, that I'm going to paint every day for 30 days. Well, then what happens after that?
Burnout.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen people go up to day 26, and then I don't see anything on their blog anymore, and that doesn't look good either. So I think I would rather have the consistency over time, like a number of hours a week or whatever, than I'm going to do this. It's like people that say I'm going to blog every day this week, and then they don't ever do it again.
Right, and you end up beating yourself up because you didn't do it, and
Exactly.
that's just a bunch of wasted time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got 11 minutes left.
All right, a few more
Sarah.
questions here. Betty asks, do you advise entering or not entering a contest wherein winners lose their copyright now and forever?
Oh God,
Yeah.
no! Please don't do that. I mean, the only reason that I would do that if it was like, and this probably happens, like a work for hire situation, which is a graphic design situation. So graphic designers don't own their copyright. They're work for hire. So they, and I'm not an attorney. I have to say that I'm not an attorney, but from what I understand, it's they relinquish that because it's work for hire. Now, so if you have like enter a contest to design, this happened recently here, the banners around town, you have to be prepared to relinquish that copyright in a situation like that, and you would want to. I mean, what else? What are you going to do with those banners around town? So there are certain situations where it might be okay, but in general, like a painting competition or a sculpture competition or photography competition, I would never do that.
Right, I definitely agree with you. And I think a lot of them anymore, I don't know that maybe she knows about a lot of them that I don't, but I don't think that you can really expect people to give up their copyrights for a competition. They might retain rights to republish or reuse your art, but then you should still have full rights of it at the end of the day. But
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yes. Very good, Sarah. You jumped in with what I was going to say. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry for stepping on your toes there, Linda.
Cool. No. We're a team.
All right. We do have a lot of questions about pricing artwork, and I don't know if you'll be able to help people with that or not without seeing what they're talking about, but any recommendations for how to go ahead and put that price on a piece of art?
Yes.
Okay.
Start low and raise it from there. It's always easier to raise it than to lower it. So start low and raise it from there. And by low, I don't mean like you need to be the cheapest artist. You just need to not be the most expensive one, right? And then do comparables, do comps. I mean, they do this in every industry. Go around and look at art by artists who are in you can do this online a lot too, who are in a similar place in their careers as you are and doing a similar type of work and size and so forth. And then that is by far the best way to do it. However, you should look at artists' work who's selling. So anyone can put a price tag on a work. You want to know what's selling at that price, right? So look at art that's selling. That is the best way to price work. And I would say you can look online, but I would look in your community because you really need to build a reputation in your community as well. And what else? What I've written a lot. If you go to artbizblog.com and you do a search in the sidebar, I've written a lot about pricing.
Perfect.
It's the thing is, what everyone, because apparently there were a lot of questions on this, what everyone needs to know is that there were a lot of questions on this because I don't care what point you're at in your career, no one is ever certain of the right price of their art. If it starts selling, they're like, oh my God, maybe it's too cheap, maybe I should raise it. I would encourage you to keep it low until you can't keep up with inventory, and then you start raising your prices.
That sounds great. Hopefully that sounds good to everyone out there that's listening.
Okay. One more thing, a very important thing that I forgot to say around that. You should make sure that you're making money from it. So don't just keep it low, but actually run your figures. Know how to run your figures, what your overhead is, what your expenses are, how many hours you're putting into it, what the materials are costing. And also, if you plan on being in a gallery at some point, they're going to take 50%. Can you take a 50% hit at that price? And I don't mean to call it a hit because galleries should earn every penny of their 50%, but it is, it takes 50% away from you. So so you will eventually have to build that in. So you don't want to raise your prices 50% all at once. So you need to build that in from the beginning, at least a little bit of it.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think people probably sell themselves a little short, pun intended. Well, I will let you guys wrap this up here in a second, but real quick, I just wanted to share these special discounts we have for everybody. Just as a little thank you for joining us today, we have the standard Art Chats 10 coupon code that you've probably heard from us before. You can use at northlightshop.com to save an extra 10% on your order. And then we also have a special 15% on our Art Business Bundle Kit, which includes a few books, and that's Art Chats 15. And you can just apply that at checkout as well. Here's that product at northlightshop.com if you want to take a look here. And then also I wanted to let you know about the courses that Linda teaches at Artist Network University. Those are Art Challenge and Getting Started with Oil Painting. So I'll just pull these up real quick so you can take a look at these and hop on over to artistnetworkuniversity.com if you're interested in taking one of these courses with Linda. This next session starts on April 21st, and then we also have Getting Started with Oil Painting that starts April 28th. So pop over there, take a look at Linda's courses and all the other great courses we have to offer. And that's just kind of a special thank you, everyone, for joining us today. So I'll turn things back to you, and you guys can share what you have coming up, and then we can go ahead and wrap this up.
Yes, Alyson, tell us what's up next for Art Biz Coach, and also share your website with us.
Well, just the next thing we have coming up is Organize Your Art Biz. It's at organizeyourartbiz.com. I help you with productivity, just getting organized. It's like what it sounds like. So organizing for artists, which people think is an oxymoron, but it works. So organizeyourartbiz.com starts April 8th, and you can find it there. You can go to artbizcoach.com and sign up for my free 6 video series and get my weekly art business newsletter that has been delivered weekly every week since March 30th, 2002. Never missed an issue. That's how much I love my list, right? So I would love to. I'd love to be able to stay connected that way.
Yes. Okay, great. And thank you so much for taking out some time.
Can I say something else?
Yes, you can.
That website, we're rebranding. You may have noticed that my slides don't look anything like that website. We're rebranding, so that website might not look like that for very long.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll go look at it while you can and check it out when it changes.
It will still be there.
Yeah, and it still will be artbizcoach.com.
Yep.
No matter what. Yeah. Yeah, great. Okay, but we wanted to thank you for taking some time out and talk with us. It was great to actually sit here and talk with you for 90 minutes and get to know you a little bit. Like I said, I've been following Alyson off and on since she started, and naturally we'll be following her in the future too. So thank you again, Alyson, for all your time and for all your knowledge and wisdom.
It's my pleasure. It was fun. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, I enjoyed it. And the next art talk, interestingly enough, will be about gallery representation. Doug Isley from Isley Gallery of Fine Art will be joining us on April 29th at 1 o'clock. And we'll have a registration page up for that as well. And then we are going to be talking to Deborah Joy Grosser, who just took over the reins of the American Impressionist Society. She is now the president and CEO. And we'll be talking to her in May. And that date will be announced shortly. I believe I have it on my calendar. I just can't remember it off the top of my head, and I apologize for that. But so the next 2 shows will be talking about gallery representation and relationships with gallery with Doug Isley, and then Deborah Joy Grosser for the American Impressionist Society. Go over to Alyson's website, artbizcoach.com, and check out all the things there. Register for her emails because they're very, very good and has a lot of information. And thank you all for joining us, and we'll hope to see you in April.
All right. Thanks so much, and we'll see you guys then. Bye-bye.